What is going on, everybody? And welcome to I think this is episode 4 of the SMITE podcast. It's been a long time since we've done one of these, but I'm super excited because we've got a really great discussion that's going to happen today. If you're watching with me on stream or watching the VOD back, you can tell I've got some goats with me today. Some of the unsung heroes of the SMITE team. If you haven't already noticed, we've got KD, KittenofDoom, Rowe, and CapsLock. And this show is going to be all about QA for SMITE. So I'm super excited to dive into discussion. But first of all, how y'all doing?
Good.
So
Yeah.
good.
Pretty
good.
Yeah.
We're chilling.
Busy days, but
Can't
chilling.
complain.
Yeah.
Can't complain.
Busy working on all cool stuff.
All the cool stuff,
Always fun.
right? I love this time of year because we're cooking.
Yeah.
We've got some
Oh, yeah.
really cool
Yeah.
stuff in the pipeline. So like I said earlier, we've got everyone here. Well, not everyone, but we've got some awesome representatives from the SMITE QA team. So I figure I'd love to start these off with some short intros for each and every one of you, kind of how you got started into SMITE in general, how you joined the team, how long you've been here, and kind of like what your official title is on the team. So
I nominate Caps first.
nominate Caps, the
Okay.
most senior.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
senior of all of us. So
My
gotta go
name-
down the line.
My name's Andrew. A lot of people call me CapsLock. For a long time, a long time ago, I played SMITE. I streamed SMITE for a while. I was on the SMITE game stream team at like the early beta
One of the
stages.
OGs, yeah.
Played the game for a while. I was known for theory crafting back then. I did a lot of math stuff. And then I met a bunch of the devs that came. I went to the SWC, I was actually at the launch tournament. And then eventually I just started working here, and I've been here for, I actually don't know.
Forever.
Like
Was it 8 years?
Yeah.
For 8
Yeah.
years, yeah.
It's been a while, but I've been on QA for the whole time. So
And you're senior QA.
yes, I'm a senior QA. I've been here. I've pretty much done everything at this point
Right.
in QA. So
Caps is
Yeah.
done for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm Kitten of Doom. I've been playing since beginning of season 3. And kind of just started making content just on YouTube, and then moved to Twitter and Twitch, and just started being a content creator.
Pull the microphone just a little bit
Oh, yeah.
closer to you. So
Getting to know.
they can hear your awesome, beautiful voice.
Oh wait, is this going up more?
We'll figure it out. There you go.
There you go.
good.
Yeah.
But just started making content and just getting to know everyone in the community. I then ran for Olympian in 2019 and 2020 and got to know you guys. And then just was helping out there, and then a position open for QA, and then I applied and got it, and it's been so much fun ever since, just working on all that and stuff. And I was so I've been here basically 2 years now, I think. End of November it'll be my 2-year anniversary, but was associate. Now I am just mid-level QA. So yeah, that's
Moving
how
on
I
up
kind
in the
of
ranks.
got into that, but it's been so much fun.
Love
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah. I mean, we're going down the order really from senior to mid-level to
Yeah.
associate.
All
here.
representation.
I'm the newbie, but I've been around SMITE for probably as long as Caps has. I started playing in Alpha and got a key from, I don't know, Reddit somewhere. And I remember I played SMITE one day and actually didn't like it the first time.
How could you?
I know.
Hire him right
And then I left it for a week, and I was like, oh, I'm bored. I'm going to play again. And it never stopped. It's been with me ever since then.
To this day, I hear you're
He's a
in the
ranked
demon hours
gremlin.
in rank.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
little,
like,
it's unhealthy at
hours.
times, but I'm here. Yeah, and so I never stopped playing. Ended up being pretty decent for my region. I'm from Australia originally. And I competed in wasn't the SPL there, it was the local regions. Won some tournaments, went to Worlds a couple times, lost Worlds a couple times, and then a couple more times after that.
Hey, you made it to Worlds though. That's
Yeah.
more than a lot of people.
Yeah, and every one of them, amazing experience. You get to meet so many amazing people. And it was that kind of experience that motivated me to, in 2018, well, end of 2018, we had a choice to move to Atlanta to play in the SPL locally. I took that opportunity without really any hesitation and haven't looked back. Originally, I was like, I'll move for a year, move to a different country and see how it is. I've been home once for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah,
We've got you.
yeah, and I'm married now. I'm set up here for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably about about 18 months ago now. I just wanted to work at Hi-Rez. I wanted to get out of the SPL. I wanted to contribute more to the game if possible. And I even joined the customer support team for about 9 months, which was a really fun experience. I don't think many people really know what happens in that department and how it all works, but it was eye-opening, and there's some great people over there taking care of all of our players. But
podcast idea.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another good podcast idea.
yeah, they'd love to, I'm sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I moved to QA about 6 months ago now. I can't remember exactly. Yeah. And that was kind of just a natural move, because even in customer support, I was most interested in all the bugs and the community issues and things like that. So it was really an easy transition, and Caps helped train me up at the time. And yeah, it's just kind of been nonstop since then. Still associate, of course, because it hasn't been long, but yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
Well, definitely excited to have you here. And little known fact for those who maybe haven't been around the community in a long time or for a while, but I had my time in QA a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So
How long were you on
I think I was in QA for like 9 months, and
It was more than me.
That was back when we had like the separation of console and PC QA.
Yeah.
And, Isaiah was a console.
Yep, because
and you went to community after.
right, yeah, I went from QA to community. Gosh, we've come such a long way, because that was back when the releases were split. So PC would release
Yep.
1 week, and then console would come after.
With a couple weeks later, we just into console.
I think I remember that because when I barely first started going into SMITE, like that's when Scotty came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to play her. And like she was like out, but I was on Xbox. So I'm
Right,
like, why can't I see her in game yet? So
now everybody gets everything all.
yeah,
at the
it's
same
so
time.
much
It's
better
awesome.
now. Everyone gets it all at the same time.
No easy feat, though, I can say
I
that
know,
much.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna dig into it right
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I would love to kind of open the floor and kind of let you all walk us through what a day in the life of like a QA analyst or someone on a QA team looks like. We were joking around before, like dispelling some of the myths, and like you all don't fix bugs, but you have a big contribution. I can't talk.
Yeah.
Into hunting those down and making sure they get fixed. And it's not like we sit around and play the game all day, as fun as that would be. But
Yeah, that'd be good.
walk me through, and walk whoever's listening or watching. What does a day in the life of a QA analyst look like?
I can probably start. It's a little bit different, I think, for different members of the team,
It is,
because some members like are really good at looking and testing at certain things. Like we have a Sean that's super good at like events and UI and stuff. So really, it kind of just depends. But like each patch, we all choose what we kind of like want to work on or what we're interested in working on. It could be like, like a god, an event, any new skins and content that are coming up,
Balance and design.
Yep, like a new map, balance, anything and everything really. So, and we're always working like 1 to 2 patches ahead of time. So we're all just testing all the new upcoming stuff. And when we see any issues, like any balance numbers that are wrong, or the event isn't working right, we just report all those to the right teams. And, we slowly, day by day, all of those get fixed. And then you see like PTS, and then it goes into live. So it's a lot of work in progress stuff and testing, but it's super fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of just tracking every single one of those issues and writing up detailed tracking notes as well, so that we can reproduce those issues. And then when a fix comes in, you can do those same reproduction steps, and if the bug doesn't happen again, then we're most likely fixed.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can test more thoroughly than that, obviously, but that's a lot of the work. Obviously, we have play tests as well. For those that think we just play the game, we do play the game as well. Don't get me wrong.
Practically every day. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's play tests every day.
Yeah. Especially lately, there's been 1 or 2 play tests every single day. We're quite lucky as well to not just have employees in those as well. We have Olympians sometimes, which is fantastic. So we have a lot of varied opinions, not only looking for bugs, but giving feedback on design as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's cool is like anyone from the company, can kind of come in and provide feedback and stuff.
You're working on the team. You're more than welcome to join a playtest, which is really awesome.
I know we've had you and Dandy in there too.
Oh yeah, I
It's
fed
been
my
super
brains
fun.
out in a playtest.
We've all been there.
Yep.
Yeah.
but-
I'd say it's there's a lot of different there's a lot of different points in my time here that I've done a lot of different things. So like for a long time, like for initially, I think I was only doing basically community bugs. I basically went on the forums back when we had those, and I was going to the subreddit and just everywhere trying to like peruse and find bugs the community was finding, bring those in, trying to reproduce them, and then get those tracked, which still happens. We still have people doing that, but over time, I did stuff like I think from like Kepri till about, I don't know what God your first was. Yeah,
I think I came on like right as Shiva was being made.
Yeah, so I think it was, so it's probably Kepri to about Shiva. I think about 90% of that was all me.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Testing wise.
It was funny because I always saw like Caps would be, you know, kind of the go-to like God tester or whatever. And at the time, I told our lead, his name's French, French the Go, that I was like interested in doing some God testing to see like what that process was. And then he's like, yeah, just go with Caps and he'll show you the ropes. And then my first God by myself was Maui. And it was me and Agro's first God together. So cool. It was like double whammy. We're doing this aggro. But yeah, it was really fun. And I think we worked on Ishtar together too. So it was kind of like a double team with her when you started telling me. But then it's kind of funny because we also, Rowe was interested in that. And then what was it? Is it Charon?
Yeah. Well, I think Caps actually started Charon.
Yeah. It was like
very early.
It was, we passed it off.
Yeah, we had like a couple pass-offs for Charon. I think I ended up finishing up, and then every god since then. And well, yeah, I guess there's more coming, isn't there? So
more coming.
Yeah. It's like for a long time. Yeah, that's like basically. I mean, it wasn't all I was doing, obviously, because I did a whole lot of things. Like there were things like sometimes I needed to write some SQL scripts to go find things because I was one of the only people who could do that for a while.
And like in between God patches, you'd be doing other stuff.
And and then like early on, there's a lot of shared things too. It's not just like, oh, we specialize, we only do this thing. For gods, I was taking it mostly just because I could handle it really quickly. I was very good at gameplay stuff, and so
you had like the SMITE knowledge for
and long. Way back when we were releasing them, like every 2 weeks there was just another god. So it was like we had to quickly get through, and so it was for a long time. It was like I was just very good at this. I got very good at it, and so I was just handling it every single patch. But once you were like, "Hey, I want to try this too," it was like
shook things up a little.
Yeah, you should. We should have more people doing this. So there's that. But there's a whole bunch of different things you can do in QA. There's like when it comes to, because it really is. It's looking at every single piece of the whole game. And it's like stuff maybe you wouldn't even think of as a player, like that just exists in the back end. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think like some really far back end matchmaking change in logic that like, but we have to check that works.
Right.
So
like when we open every day, we're checking all the things that should just still be working, you know, like ranked and switching gods and stuff like that. So it's just everything that's normally working fine, we still have to check. Like when we release like a new patch, we have this huge checklist of all the stuff just to make sure like, you know, you can purchase gems, you can spend gems. Like, you got to smoke test so much stuff, and like the whole team works together just because that takes a little bit. But it's just a lot of testing and checks.
It was so much fun, and I feel like it's such a good entry level position for anyone that wants to get into games. Just because, like you're all saying, you literally have to interface with every single department and every single team.
That's what's so fun about it too. Is like you can kind of get to see what other departments do and like get a collaborate with them. That's been my favorite part.
Yeah, and especially in a team like Hi-Rez where everybody else is so fun to work with, the fact that you get to work with them all is even better. You know, I have to ping people all the time on like, hey, there's this issue, there's that issue, and they'll message me back and we can collaborate on reproducing it and things like that. And it's just really fun getting to work with not only every department but every person in every department as well.
Or sometimes they come to you and be like, hey, can you check this? You know, because I just put this in and want to make sure it's all working good. So yeah, you get to talk to everybody. It's been fun.
Yeah. Well, I know Rowe touched a little bit on playtesting earlier, and I know that this is probably something that the community is probably the most interested in when it comes to QA. So I would love for you all to walk me through like playtesting for your job versus going home and slamming rank queues. It's
Yeah.
a very different experience. Talk to me about like, how do you all prep yourself mentally when it goes to, you know, coming into a playtest, whether that be for design feedback or, you know, doing a playtest specifically to check for issues and stuff like that. Talk to me about that process.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would categorize it into there's two different playtests realistically. We separate them by PTS and the dev client. In the PTS, we're generally testing everything that is releasing in the very next patch. In the dev client, we are testing 3 to 4 patches ahead. I think I can safely say we are testing year 11 stuff, and we have been for quite some time already, which some people won't realize. So yeah, that's always a long process. But the PTS tests, I guess scaling it all the way back, you first have to foster an environment of we need all skill levels to be able to give feedback and give their point of view. So you have to foster this environment of just being accepting of everybody. The goal isn't to win the test. That is the least important thing on the totem pole by a very, very large margin. The goal is to give feedback and just get more eyes on more things because we want everybody's view as much as each other's. So in PTS tests, we're generally testing. Priority goes for skins first because there's a lot of skins in each patch, and generally the more eyes we can get them on, the better, because not only do we have a bunch of different platforms we play on, but we have a bunch of different visual settings, and all of those need to be looked at least once and checked over. And then when there's a problem with one of them, you need to look at it again. So it takes a great amount of time. And some people might think things look good in some ways and bad in other ways. Getting everybody's feedback is really, really important in that. PTS tests usually have a decent amount of balance in them as well. So a lot of that feedback comes from probably more experienced players. I would put myself in that category where I can have the opportunity to give feedback to our design team on what I think good balanced decisions are and maybe what the knock-on effects of other balanced decisions are and how we can think about it in the future. And then we just have, you know, we could scale it all the way back to more inexperienced players where like that just didn't feel good. That new balance change just didn't feel good. And we will run like a question session of like, okay, why didn't it feel good? How can we adapt that? And things like that. And moving on from that PTS test part to the dev test part, like I said, we're testing things 3 to 4 patches ahead. We could enter a map and all of the walls are just gray blocks because we're on the very initial testing stages. Like, does jungle pathing feel good like this? Does this version of arena feel good? We put the fire giant in arena, and at that point, the very first test, it was like the fire giant would just appear. There was nothing to do with it. It would give the normal fire giant buff, and we'd slowly refine it from feedback to a point that everybody's really excited about. I can say confidently, since I joined QA, I've always been more excited about the next release than I have been about Live Smite. And I play Live Smite every day and a ton. Like I already love it. Yeah, but I'm always excited about the next release just because I'm so confident in what the team has been doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it does happen a lot. And I think like when I think more recently we've been a lot better about our pipeline and like getting more things in earlier. But when you're testing things like that aren't coming for a while, there's like a lot of trust in that because it's like you see something that looks horrible. It looks terrible and ugly and barely works. And like you're basically like, well, this is going to be better hopefully in 2 weeks. Like, so some of it is like that, right? And like we just know, this is still in production. It's gonna look bad. Like but you still have to play it. You still have to figure out, hey, is this fun? Like, or do we like the layouts here? Do we like this? Like, I think way back when we had Jingwei, like her initial model, like the first time we play tested her, she was actually Rama with just like 2 wings attached to him. And then like her 3 and 1, like she jumped into it and just hovered slowly into the air and then flipped forward. And it was like, it was really weird. Like you just get very, very, very strange feeling things. And you just have to be like, okay, but you have to kind of look forward and go, okay, but this will look way cooler later. Like this will be cool eventually. Will it be fun if we polish this up? Because sometimes you'll see something super frustrating otherwise, right? Like, there's no visual feedback on something. Like as a player, you get hit by something and you're like, oh, I got hit by that. And then when you might have a bug happen where you don't hear an ability go off and it's super frustrating. In playtests, that's like normal. That just happens. Some like early playtests, the sound cue might just not be there.
Yeah.
So
Or it could be a temp sound or something that sounds like something else in the
Yeah.
game, just to like as a placeholder. But yeah, early like God playtests are always like kind of fun and funny to be in because you know it's all temp and super funny. Like bugs can happen all the time, but
We're gonna get into
Yeah.
some super funny bugs in a little bit, but definitely
some
have
good
a
ones.
lot more topics that I want to go through. So, being in QA, I'm curious for you all because I know I have my list in the back of my head of what kind of things I ran into, but like, what's kind of like the most challenging part of being in QA? Do y'all feel like?
I think for me, it's knowing like that, you know, we get community bug requests or reports all the time. And like, then we go and try and repro them. But like, for me, it's like super hard repro bugs that you know are happening. Like, that's the most frustrating part for me. Cause like, you know, you want to get this in to like help everyone and make everyone have a lot more fun in the game, not run into it anymore. And to tell the programmers exactly how to like find it. But I would say that's probably the most frustrating. Is like, dang, I just know it's, I know it's
Like, what is
happening,
it?
but what is it? You know, what are the
Yeah.
steps? But that's for me.
It's harder as well because we all have, every single person at this, especially you, Isaiah, all have a connection to our community. So we want to fix the bugs that they have. And I think it's I'll just name a bug that we're actually fixing next patch, which is dangerous to do, but we've already semi-fixed it.
Yep.
And a lot of people will know about it, is that some players on some accounts will crash anytime they enter a match as hell.
Yeah.
That is extremely frustrating.
It's been happening for years.
It's been one we
Literally
have
years.
no
Yeah.
idea. We're just like,
Yeah.
what is happening?
And we've been so many different tests, like why does it happen on some accounts and then they can change PC and it still happens on that account. It's not the PC, it's not the version that they're on, it's only a particular god. There is so many variables, and we just couldn't lock it down for so long.
And it
and
was
that
like after a
really
certain
frustrating
patch too. So
Exactly.
like, what just happened?
What changed,
Yep.
right?
yeah, and sometimes the cadence would increase and we're like, okay, what changed? Now that we do know what it is, thanks to a community report, by the
Yes,
way, which was
yes.
really awesome. Shout out to that guy.
Shout out Black Knight with
yeah.
some
Yeah,
numbers.
Black Knight.
Get the numbers.
Yeah. I remember him. Yeah, really helped us out a ton by just giving us a great bug report through the bug report form, by the way, which is very useful
Which
as
you
well.
guys should use
Yeah.
to see like what happens.
Yeah.
That's really, it's just so helpful.
Yeah, so just things like that are just super frustrating when we just can't lock it down and there's just this ridiculous variable that was involved that nobody ever would have thought of. But then when you get it reported and you're like, oh, it does make sense. There's this little red flag amongst the sea of blue or green flags, whatever, that we didn't spot. And it's just been plaguing the game for 3+ years. But on the flip side of that, yes, it was frustrating for so long, but that moment of getting that extra bit of information and then kind of reverse engineering it and really finding out why it happened and then being able to fix it, that feeling trumps all of the
Totally.
frustrations. So
Absolutely.
it's well worth it.
Yeah, just to give our listeners and watchers a little bit more context. So the issue is certain players would select hell in the pregame lobby, and if they had a certain
Fountain skin.
equipped,
Only 3 of them in the game.
only
Yep.
3 of them,
One of the three.
it would just cause you to just crash no matter what.
Yeah,
And
every time.
shout out to Black Knight for, pointing out the fountain skin, one of the fountain skins.
Yes, yeah.
That was the issue, which led the team to aggress all the fountain skins
Yep.
to nail down the issue. And we're getting it fixed next patch, which is awesome.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of bugs that have happened like that, and like way back the Vulcan's turret just
Oh
being
my gosh,
invisible
yeah.
on Joust when you're in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
That one was wild, but yeah, I think those can be very, very frustrating because I think as a player too, like from a player perspective, you see this happening all the time. It's like, why is it not getting fixed? But in reality, like partially what our job is we have to get these bugs and then we have to cause them on our own.
Yeah.
And sometimes causing them is just like, it takes a wild set of circumstances that like there's a chain reaction of things that cause the bug, because otherwise, like if we know a bug is happening and a programmer goes in and tries to fix this bug, they're basically going in blind. Like they go,
Needle
well, I
in a
know it's
haystack
related
type thing.
Yeah, it's like, I know it's related to this ability, and so let's go through the ability and look at everything. It looks good. What could be wrong here? So like, you can't just automatically debug something and go, oh, hey, it's the third ability. It must be that. Oh, there's the bug. Like, there's millions of lines of code, so you're trying to find it, then reproduce that bug so you can trace through and see, oh, that's where it broke. Okay. And then it might even be good code, but just the way it interacted with something.
Exactly. Just to make up a random example, let's say a bug only happens after 35 minutes in a Conquest match. Okay, what's happening at 35 minutes in a Conquest match? Oh, by that point, everybody has, I don't know, 4 or 5 items, and there's 10 players in a match, and there is... well, sometimes there's stance switches, but there's at least 4 abilities and a passive ability on however many gods are in that team fight. All of a sudden, we have thousands and thousands of variables where one of those could be the break case. Finding that one is very, very difficult sometimes. So that's why community reports are really good. Not only that, but community reports that have video clips and screenshots and match IDs and things like that are awesome.
Yeah, so helpful.
And you can run into one of the worst kinds of bugs, I think, is a race condition, which is essentially something happens on the same server tick as something else and they don't resolve properly. One of my favorites a while ago was Nox, it was like a patch or 2 after she released. She just was losing collision. We couldn't figure out why. She would just start walking through things and she couldn't hit her. And Pawn and I went in for like a long time trying to figure out what was going on. We had to go through like 100 replays of people having this happen to them.
Oh my goodness.
Until we found out that what it was is that when she shadow stepped into somebody and a Ratatosker acorn hit her.
Oh my gosh.
Then
one acorn.
Whenever she exited that person, now she has no collision. And why it was the rat's acorn? Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows, right?
It was Ratatosker's acorn, and it was one of those things where we were trying all these things in the videos and we're like, nothing's working, and I was just like, there's a rat in every single one of these. There's always a Ratatosker. Maybe it's the acorn, and we spent so long trying to get this to happen. It finally happened, but it took a while. And like, that's a major bug. You can't just leave that out there. Nox just can't be hit suddenly. So.
And I think that's kind of what's fun about our job too, is like you kind of keep narrowing it down and just brainstorming all these different things. And like, okay, let me try this. Let me try this. And then when you finally figure it out, like the feeling is just amazing. You're doing this like internal, like, yeah. So that's what is so fun about it.
I know. I love it. Cool. Well, on any given patch release, you all have, we talked about it before, so many things that you have to go through. The smoke chest list that we talked about earlier. I want to talk a little bit about like what we do to kind of organize all this stuff and keep track of it, and like what does that process look like? What tools do we use on the QA team? Because of course we have the game that we can go off of, right? But like we can't like pull up a list in game and just keep track of all the bugs, right? So like how do we keep track of, you know, what's on the list for the team, the status of fixes and all that kind of things?
I mean, I can go if you want.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's a lot of collaboration between different departments because everybody's working on their own work and it all just sifts down through QA. We have a lot of spreadsheets. I'll say that much.
Spreadsheets.
It's game development.
Yeah. And we all use individual spreadsheets as well. I know I have spreadsheets and just kind of like my own tools just to do some math faster and track some things faster. Jira is a tracking program that we use extensively that is connected to every single other department in the company. We can set priorities. We put the reproduction lists on it and everything. So that has basically all the information that all the developers need, and then that comes back to us and we check everything. And then yes, we have the smoke chest sheets. But that's not just, you know, when the patch launches, we have the quick checklist where we go through and make sure every core part of the game is working before we open up to live players. But when a new god comes out, there is 2 to 3 sheets of every single interaction that we've had problems with in the past, which that list is getting long.
Morgan is on the list, right?
Yeah, she has her own page, by the way.
The Morgan has her own page.
Yeah, items have their own page.
Does.
Yeah.
Yep, I made that page.
It's kind of cool too, because like, you know, from Caps, like, and then when I come on, like, everyone's really open to like edits and changes and additions to all of these spreadsheets, you know. So like being able to add to things over the years, like it really helps like with the god process too. So, you know, and other bugs, just be like, all right, we know that this, you know, causes a weird interaction. Let's check it every time we're implementing it. But yeah, it's a lot of spreadsheets, checklists, but Jira would be probably the main one because we can assign out different things to test to everyone. And they always have like a priority, like high priority, medium, low. But yeah, mostly everyone just goes through that, and everyone on the QA team has like what's called our like big ticket items. So someone could be over the event or like a god or whatever. So usually they're kind of in charge of their own JIRAs that they create to the teams just to make sure like, okay, the fix got in and is tested. So JIRA is a big one. We use Slack a lot for communication and reporting issues and stuff. But yeah, I would say those are a lot of the main things.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets, JIRA, Slack.
I was going to say, I would argue that QA members probably have the deepest DMs in Slack. I imagine
probably.
If we could do an audit of all employees at the company, I think members in the QA would have the most DMs by far.
Yeah, and some of them like, there's just one person that you have like 100 messages between you and them over one small thing. But
Exactly.
no, I agree. It's pretty much Jira is like the whole project, and then across the team we have a bunch of different ways to like new gods. They'll have their own sheet. An event, it has its own sheet, and we're collecting all the bugs there to make sure that we just have visibility on them each patch. So
Cool. All right, well, fun one. What's your favorite part of your job? Like, what do you love the most about being in QA?
I think mine is still always that like aha moment on like a really hard bug that I finally get a repro for. It just feels amazing every single time. Like, I don't think anything's trumped it. And working on a game and a community, that I've loved. So
I was gonna say,
mainly it for me.
that's mine too. That was the whole reason I wanted to work at Hi-Rez to begin with, and didn't even start in QA. I just wanted to be able to impact a game that I would then move to my other computer and then play all night. Which means I'm always looking forward to the next update and just waiting to play the next update, which is great as well. It also just kind of I'm always enjoy a bit like Caps as well, just like kind of passionate about having that amount of game knowledge and just being creative in ways to use it. And when I'm have all of the game knowledge that I'm gaining from working on the game, then that makes it more fun when I go and play the game afterwards. So it just working at the company has increased my enjoyment of the game, which I think a lot of people think would be the opposite.
Right, yeah.
When you work on something, then it just becomes work. It just hasn't been that way for me. It's still a game and work separately. It's just at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. every night I switch over.
I think the longer I've been in QA, like the more I don't like. It's one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of people think like, oh yeah, you work in, like Yuki said, you work in games, you get bored of games.
Yeah.
I think you start enjoying them in different ways. In some ways you start to like them less, but like I enjoy them in a lot of different ways because like I'll play another game and I'll see a bug in it and I'm like, I bet you I know how that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
This we've had this before. I know I've seen this. So like you run into stuff like that and it's like, haha, I know how this happened, and like you can like it just feels there's that good moment. But I think as far as working here, I think it's just the people. I like working with like a lot of the people we work with, and I like being able to like interface with multiple different departments. So
yeah, that's a really good point, Caps. Not just being in QA, but just like working in game dev, just in general, like. When you play games, like it's like you get a new lens on your glasses or your eyelids,
you really
right?
do.
You look at them differently, and you're still playing them for enjoyment, right? But you see things that people who don't necessarily work in games.
Yeah, as a QA, I have a whole new filter too, because I also like now I'll see games that like I'm sure there's a bunch of like rage posts about that are like, oh, I hate look at all these bugs, they're terrible, and I see them and I'm like, oh, I know how that happened, I don't really care about it anymore.
Right.
Because I'll look at it and I'm like, I get it, I know why this happened.
Yeah, and it's not like we're reporting it to their devs. We're just like, oh, sorry.
I kind of have the perspective of I get how that happened, I understand, and so like I have a lot more compassion,
right.
I guess.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's not. I guess it's like when you've worked in a service industry thing, right? You've worked across the counter, and then you come in and you see people shouting at them, and you're like, "I'm sorry, dude, I get it," like that kind of thing.
Can I see a wand in there?
Oh, hold on.
I do not know.
We got a special guest, Mifflin, where we're looking for.
I do not.
Don't see it.
He's pranked us, I think.
I don't see one. Shout outs to Mifflin though, he's a good one. Yeah. What are you talking about? Oh, looking at games differently once you're in the industry.
I mean, you spoke about having more compassion for the devs as well, and in relation to the service industry is great. And you see some, maybe it's just some other random game community and that are raging about some particular thing that's been happening for a couple of days, but we know from working in the game industry, it takes more than a couple of days to fix that, especially if you're a multi-platform game like SMITE. There are a lot of hoops that you have to go through with other platforms. Certification to actually send updates live. So you have a lot more compassion for other devs.
Yeah, there is always times though where like I'll play a game and I'm like, wow, this is just it's so bad that I can't play it right now. But like I'm way more likely to excuse something like I don't know, playing an MMO and seeing like the world, like you see a seam somewhere that like is sticking out and you're like, I get it. I see that you did not expect anybody to come at this from this angle and this way. Like you see it and you're like,
the level of detail, it's really weird how it like changes once you like start working on games.
Even down to like a reused asset somewhere. Like this building is kind of the same as this other one. It's like, well, I understand that only 1 out of 20,000 players is going to see this building. You know, they can't put the resources into developing this whole new part of the map. So yeah, just being able to understand game development at an extra level has increased my enjoyment for games.
Yeah, and I think over time, like the more you're in the industry, and it's not even just QA specific, but like I play games with like Pon, who's a designer. Like you do start to see things that are like very common like game dev things. So you sort of just see games in a different lens in general. Like reuse, asset reuse, you'll see it where you didn't see it before.
Exactly.
You'll see a rig that you're like, I know that's the same rig as this other thing, even though it looks nothing alike. I see what they're doing here. So, and that's kind of fun where like you're like, oh wow, I noticed this. I bet you most players don't.
Exactly. And with that, it gives you an extra appreciation. It's like, oh, it's smart that they reused this right here. Because it perfectly fits and they didn't need to put in all of this extra work.
Yeah, one of my favorite games for that is Final Fantasy 14. They reuse rigs all the time and sometimes it's wildly different. Like it looks totally different, but I'm like, impressive. I see it. Like I can tell where the rig is right now, but
cool. Yeah. Well, kind of piggybacking off of like the favorite part of like your job in general, like I always love asking the question, like over your time in the QA department, like is there any particular project or thing that that you accomplished or really knocked it out of the park, or anything that you're just like super proud of, like, man, I really helped nail down this bug, or I really helped progress this event, or something like that?
Yeah, I think for me it's kind of a lot because I've been helping out on like community stuff for a while. I know one that comes to mind is the PlayStation crashing in the pre-match lobby a lot of the time. That was like a nail in our side for so long, and I worked with Skeely on that, and we ended up finding it was the voice system. I think we call it like Vivox or whatever. But if any like voice kind of came through the PlayStation during like that time in the pre-match lobby, like it would just crash. So then we finally nailed it down, and Skeely helped us fix that. And I know that was like a big quality of life for all of our console players and stuff. And I think just in general, stuff I'm most proud of is just like every God release I worked on. You know, it's so cool seeing them go from like their first like development stages, first couple of play tests till we release them, and then that is just a bunch of fun. And I know this isn't really like QA related, but working on like the V Shoujo crossover, I got to help on that. So just seeing that go, and I like worked on voice packs and like helped that go along. So yeah, it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, mine Michaela will relate with, and that would be Maman's 3.
Oh yeah,
that ability,
crazy ability, right?
Yeah, and it took a tremendous amount of testing, just because there are so many variables that comes with grabbing a target and then what that target can do while you're grabbing it. And we saw it as well when you guys had the patch notes show. Immediately the Reddit threads are like, okay, but what if Maman goes in Apollo?
We're like, Apollo we already thought about that.
And then Apollo lands in a Janus portal. And then,
all these different things.
Every single one of them we had to test. So me and Michaela had this massive list.
Yep, we had like meetings of just Maman 3 testing.
Normally we might circle back on something once or twice a week, but we were doing that every single day for a week or two. And I think just having that release, we have this list and we build this list ourselves of things to check, but there could always be things missing from that list. And when Maman was released, there were some minor issues, but the amount of major issues that we had caught in our list was tremendous, literally hundreds.
It's always such a feel-good moment. Exactly. We're like, all right, it didn't go crash and burn.
Because we're releasing the God and we're like, okay, what are they gonna find? And they basically found nothing wrong with it, and it was just a really relieving feeling, and it just felt great.
I kind of want to. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Caps, but I kind of want to touch on that because we play test, once or twice a day, but like the amount of time that we can playtest in a release is like
Oh,
dwarfed by like 1 hour
The
of live
thousands
time.
of players. Yeah.
That kind of goes into what I was going to say is what I was most proud of, though, which is it's going to sound crazy to some people, but I think the thing I'm probably most proud of in my time is probably the Morrigan.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of people will be like, the Morrigan was crazy bugging on release, though. And it's like, yeah, but I think
You don't know.
Release.
I think at the time, yeah, I think if you had the context of because I think back then we were still on our 3-week God schedule. So Morrigan was made in like a month.
Yeah.
Like realistically, and she was absolutely like the most ambitious thing we'd ever done. And we did solve so many bugs. There were so many bugs. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure if you were to ask Jordan if his memory
Or go back
then,
in her like
that
Jira
was-
somewhere.
Yeah, that was back when I was working with him and we were just going through Morrigan. When we were first showing her off at like SWC that year, we had a list of like 250 bugs or something.
Yeah.
Like it was enormous. And I'm just like, I remember showing her off and being like, this is not going to go well. I'm like crossed fingers. And I think it went okay. We definitely had some major issues initially on that patch. And then when we released her, she had some big things going on, but like, overall, for what we tried to do and the amount of time we tried to do it, I think
cool.
Morrigan was really good. And over time, obviously, we got her in a much
More
better
polished.
spot. She's still a culprit of a lot of things.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why.
That's why
With
when
every God
yeah.
list, we go back to
The problem
Morrigan.
child.
Yeah, when I made a new God sheet, I literally made the Morrigan tab, and
Yep.
it's just everything that the Morrigan has broken on every God leading up to it, which is a lot. But
Cool. Well, I want to get into some of the fun stuff now.
Let's go.
We don't talk about this publicly really at all, ever. There have been a couple times where we're like, we'll post something where something crazy happens internally, but since I have you all here, treat for everyone that's watching, I wanted to give you all an opportunity to just talk about some of the craziest things that you all have ran into bug-wise during testing. So I got this first one from Caps, and
yeah, I sent a bunch
coming
of
from the Morrigan.
Oh yeah.
There was an issue where Caps, you can explain. 'Cause this is
Yes.
insane.
That is when Morrigan would ult and turn into Kukulkan, her screen would just rotate 90 degrees. And every time you did
New
it would
Smite
rotate another
experience.
90 degrees. So
So you could just
Like-
be playing Smite upside down.
yeah,
like-
the HUD is correct there. That's just what it looked like. Your screen would be 90 degrees, and you're playing Morrigan that way now.
So you just have to ult into Kukulkan until it like 360s all
Yeah.
the way around.
Each time it just goes further and further.
Yep, that was when we were first initially testing her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. All right. The next one, we've got a cursed image. We were talking about rigs earlier.
I know what this one is.
An issue where with Sobek's
Yeah.
rig, just adopting Neath's model. And this
Yep.
is like crazy stuff like when we do like skins and stuff like that. Some crazy stuff can happen, right?
Yep, this is. I think this was when we were doing Sobek's kaiju skin. For some reason, we ended up with the Neath's model on that skin, and it's kawaii Neath. I just like came into work, and this was like the home screen like that
that's
day,
funny.
and it's just like, oh wow.
Yeah, it can literally just be like a difference of like a tick of a box sometimes, for some of these like crazy stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
I
always fun to see.
I think we even took this to another level and like we did like an all Neath April
Oh,
Fool's
yeah,
joke and,
you
like,
did.
literally just put Neath's rig on a bunch of different gods and it's
I remember like the Ares rig or on Rat's rig or something.
my
It was
God.
like a meme post we did a little bit ago.
oh
Yeah,
my
those are awesome.
All right, and then this next one.
This
is
one's
the
epic.
classic one.
Yep.
This is the one that everyone talks about. So we had an issue to where basically everything in the game just adopted Apollo's model. Like when you think
The
about
ancient Machina skin.
Divine Machina Apollo
Yep, this
specifically.
is all posh.
so literally everything from his corpses. I think even his basic
His
attacks a little
autos,
bit.
yep.
Yeah, it's insane.
Every single god in the game. Yep. There's
Yep,
those
everything.
beautiful autos.
Everything is Apollo.
Oh, even those
The rig's
Odin
not
bots.
too bad, actually.
We went when this happened. I think this was Matt Newton way back then, who was recording this.
Yeah, the minion projectiles.
But yeah, he goes through everything in this. That's the corpse explosion. Just leaves the T-posed Apollo.
Oh, wait till we get to the fire giant.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Look at him.
The fire
He
giant.
is beautiful. He's all
The fire giant needs to
stretched.
get into the gym. Like, what happened?
I know.
Throwing
Even the fire giant
rock
meteors
This
are
leg day.
Apollos. Yeah.
Oh, then
the Apollo. The Apollo March.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Should have just kept this in for April Fool's Day or something.
yeah. One of my favorites is the jungle buff. So I think he goes there eventually. But the buff camps, those are great too.
Oh, here's Gold Fury.
Yeah, that's what you get when a model rides another's rig. You just see wild stretching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the fun parts of game dev is that there are so many variables and any number of things can break in
there's
any
the
number
tower.
of ways. I don't think anyone would ever foresee a bug like this ever happening.
Apollo. Shooting Apollos from
Until
the
it
sky.
does.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I think there's some more gods as well, maybe on this clip too, other than.
Yeah, because it was like
gosh.
literally every single model in the game.
Yep. And
These-
earlier,
these
the
are some of
Odin
my
bots.
favorites.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I like the buff games.
Oh, look at them all.
Both.
Yeah, a humanoid model on some bestial rig is always the best.
Yep, and then when it drops the buff is Apollo.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
It's literally everything. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's
It's all
hilarious.
Apollo.
See, I didn't even get this deep into the video. The buff being Apollo is hilarious.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
how
great.
The VGS is by. And then the last one, got this one from KD
Oh, yep.
with your girl Scotty.
Mm-hmm. It might be because my favorite bug because of that.
Oh
but-
my gosh, yeah.
So I think Caps, Caps found this one, but it's like my favorite bug ever is just the Shiva permaslide. Like he would AO3, and if he would AO3 onto Scotty's permafrost, he would just ping pong and slide everywhere for the rest of the match. And the community also, I think this wasn't it when Shiva released? I think it was like a couple reports after his release. When we just got random reports of like, Shiva's
he's
sliding
bouncing.
across.
Sliding around like, what's going on?
Yep. But those were always, that one is probably one of my top favorites.
Yeah, this also came from for a while. You could do this to Fire Giant.
Oh my good, the
With-
fire giant.
Not with Scotty, but like way back, Ymir, if he put a wall underneath the Fire Giant in the right way, it would just bounce out, and then it would start sliding.
Oh,
along the
really?
map.
That's
So-
awesome.
This is one of those things. Like when I saw it, I was like, I think I might know what's happening.
Mhm.
So
And this is one of those cases to where it's those weird one-off interactions,
Right.
right?
Yep, it could be just one god in that, and then
Yeah, and
that's it.
every time something like this happens, then we have to add it to our list. And okay, every
Yep.
new god that comes out, we have to check this.
you have to
So-
check if it has multiple states. You check it on
Exactly.
permafrost.
Every
Scotty
single
permafrost
round.
is on the god list.
And you
Yep.
mentioned like, CCing the fire giant every time we add a knockback or a knock up or some kind of disruption ability. It's like, okay, can I Herc one a tower now?
Right,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, I can. Okay. We need to fix that.
And
Or I can-
another funny one is always like sometimes jumping while like gods are ulting always causes like issues too, and it would cause like a new gods to get in broken states. So we always made that on the new checklist as well. So it's
You know,
kind of fun because it's just like as you go, like the more you learn and the more you know how to test. And
yeah, for one of the common bugs that we have on our list is when you fire an ability and then rank it up while it's firing,
Mhm.
which is there because way back Cupid had a problem where if he heart bombed and as the heart bomb left his bow, he leveled it up. That heart bomb, when it exploded, would cause heart bomb to be on everything it exploded on.
oh my gosh.
So, and we would see that clip like that got sent to us a few times, where we'd see a clip of just heart bomb exploding into more heart bombs, and we're like, why is this happening? And we finally found out that it was leveling because it was somebody who had auto level on. That was just, he was like, it's happening to me, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's
like
auto levels hitting him right then. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's just the perfect time,
Yep.
timing and everything
Yeah.
just causes it.
Again, that's another thing on a list. Every time a god releases, does
Yep.
auto buy work? Does auto level
yeah.
work? Is it in the correct order? Am I buying
Yeah.
Warrior's Axe on a support god by accident with auto
yeah, does
buy?
the build make sense?
Mhm.
The
Right?
list never ends.
There's so
yeah.
many like tiny things.
Yep,
Yeah.
our lists are pretty big for like things that we've had to, like things that we constantly release, like gods. It's just we have a sheet for gods, we have a sheet for maps, we have a sheet for like items. we have a set of things we have to go through because we just know, like, over time you just learn. There's some things that can break.
I did make a item sheet too for when we had the bobble debacle.
The bobble debacle.
When you could have like 100% CDR, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make a sheet. And I think that one wasn't it like selling it as you were dead or something like that?
I just remember Camazots just permanently flying around every time we would land, it'd just fly off again. I was like, okay.
I think it was something about like selling it as you were dead or buying like more CDR when you were dead or something, and it would just infinitely put up the cap and not cap you at like the 50 or 60%. So
Smite's such a big game, and there's so many different interactions. It's just what happens when you know.
Developing a game for 10-12 years, the game gets pretty big.
Yeah, that's kind of QA, and it's one of those things where like every time somebody new comes in, I'm like, all right, here's the sheet we use.
You're ready?
And it's like, here's all the things we do, and it's like there's reasons for every single one of them. And
I swear there's a reason for this. Yeah.
Cool. Speaking of new people coming in, I would love it if you all could give just a little bit of advice to our listeners, watchers, viewers. For anyone interested in getting into QA, like, what's some advice for, trying to get your foot in the door?
I think for most of us, like, we really got our foot in the door just from being, like, active in the community, really. Yeah. So, if there's, like, a game or even, Smite, I would just say just be super active and involved with, like, the devs, the community, the game, try and be on forums. Like, obviously, when we introduced, like, the Olympian program, I was like, oh my gosh, I would love that. So just be, like, active and engaged and try and, like, volunteer yourself for anything and everything. That would be my biggest thing, is just, like, network, make friends, and just have a fun time, basically.
Yeah. I guess in a more traditional advice sense as well, there are courses online. There is, like computer science courses that do help in some regard. Caps mentioned SQL earlier. Like, if you know SQL, that will help eventually in your career. And all of them are good life skills to have anyway. But a very, very, very important part of, well, any job, but especially QA, is being able to work with anybody and everybody. You have to be able to communicate really effectively. So working on that and understanding everybody's different point of view, and be willing to take feedback on every little thing, and also not only take feedback from, let's say a playtester, and be able to deliver that feedback. You might hear that feedback a certain way, or maybe that playtester doesn't give the kind of feedback, or give feedback in a way that one of the developers might want to hear it. You can translate that feedback into ways that is productive. So I think just people skills in general are a big one. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I think I think all of us got in a very untraditional way.
Yeah, but, that's what's hard, is like.
Yeah, so it's a little bit hard, but like, I mean, I've also interviewed a ton of people. I think what Michaela says is right. Obviously, networking is really important in any job. Yeah. Like, not even QA. That's just getting a job in general. Like, trying to network as much as you can, if possible, is a huge up. But I think as far as QA goes, just there's like a lot of things you can learn. There's a lot of ways that, like, you can, like, it comes down to, you need, like, an eye for detail, and you need to, like, you really need to be able to, like, understand, like, where things, like, this is really hard to explain. Now that I'm trying to,
you've been doing it.
It's one of those. I've got a thing in my head that I know what I'm trying to say, but
analyzing skills too, because of, like, videos and stuff. Like, very analytical.
Yeah. It's things like that where you want to try and be as analytical as possible, and it's a field that's really hard to show off skills in, because it's like a lot of the skills are a little bit hard to understand. But I think communication is a very easy one, that the better you get at it, the better it'll serve you, because QA has to talk to every single dev. They have to, you're going to be talking to a lot of people, and even if you're not in, like, a specific dev team, like, you're going to have to communicate with your team members a whole lot. But yeah, eye for detail is a huge one, and networking is always a huge bonus. If you're looking for just, like, resources on, like, QA and things that are, like, insightful I think there's like a podcast, it's called, like, Underground QA.
Oh yeah. Listen to them.
There's, like, there's a lot of, like, really professional QA people there that, like, they have really good insights on things that you can sort of learn from, and like on a base level, and just knowing some of the stuff they talk about is like a huge up for you. Like just if you came in and started talking about like things like quality bars and explaining them in ways that like are like make sense, I'd be like, whoa, like how does this person know all this? Like that kind of thing, right? So because it's a job that like a lot of people are trying to get into, so trying to set yourself apart in any way is like really important.
Yep. And even like on LinkedIn, just, you know, try and connect with people and talk to them on what their advice would be. And like maybe on LinkedIn, if you're working on, you know, like a random Unreal project, you can share that. And a lot of like LinkedIn posts have a lot of information and resources too.
Yeah.
So that's always what I would recommend too.
Yeah. Another big skill that I always call out for people who are interested in QA is technical writing. You know, the art of writing step by step.
Oh, yeah.
It's super important. I always think about, I think Agro told the story about, because Agro's wife is a teacher. And one of my favorite things back in the day was like, all right, I come in with a bag of bread, peanut butter, and jelly. Write me how to make a PB&J sandwich.
Oh, yep.
And like, they go through it. And it's just like, So working out, you know, how the art of writing a repro, how to reproduce something for sure.
Yep,
is a big thing for QA.
Yeah, I think like generally when like somebody's come in, I'm training them. A lot of the time, I'll say like, write a bug like the person has never touched the game. Like they've never seen. They don't even know what the screen looks like.
Yeah.
Like and they're totally new.
You could be sending this to a programmer that you know knows Smite in and out, but I think it's still good to like, you know, still write it out as like someone touches this that has never, you know, interacted with Smite, and it makes it like 10 times easier.
Yeah, it's as long as because I think doing it that way, you get like way better instructions on something. Because you might, if you don't do it that way, you might
get like a
and,
DM
explain
being
something
like,
that's like,
I can't repro this, or like, what do you mean by this? You know,
you say something slightly like off, or you skip something that you didn't think was important, and you're like, oh, it's that.
That goes as far as keeping your own notes as well. Like keep your own detailed, very, very, very detailed notes, because you might remember it in that moment, and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll get to this later, and I know what this is when I write this little shorthand note for myself. Realistically, you're probably going to forget, because part of QA is a lot of time management. You might be handling 100 different issues in one day. They may be all very small issues individually, but they all have their own details. So time management, note keeping, and just I think
organization.
Exactly, and writing those detailed notes in a very well formatted way is important.
All right, last thing, I would be remiss if I don't ask you all, what's the best way for players to report bugs in Smite?
So I had a hand, with Vin, also from Pality's community manager. We have set up an official bug report form, and that's actually how we noticed that hell issue. So right now, I would say that's probably one of the best ways to report bugs. And we have like on the forum, you can put in like clips and, you know, just a bunch of different descriptions of like the platform and God item, whatever it is, put it all on there. And I know for patch days, every patch we have, the Reddit mods make like a thread of like patch day bugs and everything. When we do live releases, we actively look on those threads, you know, seeing like what are the top bugs for these releases. Another good way has always been, you know, like Olympians. We always have a direct access to Olympians in our Discord to report bugs. But yeah, those were. Am I missing any? Reddit.
I would just highlight one not to do, and that would be try not to reach out to employees directly too much. You know, we all have our own things we're working on. Those forms are perfect. Those Discords are perfect. Olympians filter things through us in ways that are perfect. Like those are already great resources, and they fit directly into our pipeline, so it's really, really efficient. If you have a bug that you want to see fixed, your chances of seeing it fixed sooner are much better if you put it through those channels. Because it just works so well for us, and like help us help you. That's all it is really.
Yeah, I would say adding like 10 or 5 employees on a post probably isn't the best way.
Twitter account.
sometimes like it creates a really bad expectation too. Like I've had people tweet me that they'll tweet me like, hey, here's this bug, why is it not fixed yet? And I'm like, I've never seen that before.
Right,
I reported it like 5 months ago, and
I tagged you.
I went and looked through their Twitter feed. I didn't get tagged. They like tweeted it at like Stu or something.
Right.
And it's like Stu has no connection to QA. If you tweeted it at him, it's not going to come to us. We're not going to see it unless he happens to look at his Twitter feed that day. So,
yeah. I would say if it's obviously like a super critical high bug, like feel free to
shout out
reach out.
at that point. But
or even Olympians because they literally talk to us
quick.
every day. So but,
the forum is great though. Yeah, the forum.
I loved the forum.
100% the best spot. It has helped a lot in just collecting community bugs.
And that forum is right at the top of SMITEgame.com. SMITEgame.com.
There's
Click
a
that
link
drop down
right
arrow.
there.
Yep.
Report a bug. Is that what it's under?
Yep, I think it is. Report a bug.
Yep.
We go straight to the forum.
It's the best way.
Well, Kitten of Doom, Rowe, Caps, thanks so much for spending some time with me and having a great discussion. Before we close out, y'all want to plug your social media channels? Where can people find you if they want to follow you and keep track of your journey and all that stuff?
Yep, I'm just at Kitten of Doom. I do have a Hi-Rez one under Hi-Rez Kitten that I use less often, but Kitten of Doom is the main one.
yeah, mine is pretty simple. I only really use Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
X.
X. Oh boy.
It's just Rowe OCE. The OCE stands for Oceania because that's where I came from. And I guess if you see me in game, you can say hi as well. Yeah.
Yep, and I'm over there as Titan CapsLock.
Perfect.
All right.
Yep.
Well, again, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for watching, everybody who's been hanging out with us in chat. If you're listening, thanks so much for making it this far down in the episode.
Yeah.
I promise I'm going to do more of these because it's so much fun getting to talk to members of the amazing Titan Forge team. But until then, we'll catch y'all on the next one and talk to y'all later.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Thanks.